Hello everyone, it's your favorite Hill the Alchemist, and I'm back with another video. And in this video, I want to talk about trauma. So, since I've been recording healing sessions and my last two healing sessions have focused on trauma, I figured that I'd make a quick little video just kind of giving a brief overview of it. So, there are three types of trauma that exist, and that is acute, chronic, and complex. And if you see me looking down, it's because I have some notes so I can kind of keep myself and my thoughts all aligned. So you have acute, chronic, and complex trauma. So acute trauma is pretty much anything that is like a one-time only event, so like a car accident or a natural disaster, but also keeping in mind that a natural disaster could also fall under chronic because you can develop PTSD from a natural disaster. So think about like a catastrophic event like Hurricane Katrina, for example, and I know there's been more since that, but Hurricane Katrina kind of happened like during my childhood, and that was very kind of traumatic to watch people like go through that on TV, and knowing that these people kind of weren't getting the help that they deserved and that they needed, and then also being an adult now and knowing that there are people still suffering because of Katrina. So think about things like Katrina, and that's kind of how a natural disaster falls under chronic trauma. So chronic trauma is prolonged exposure to multiple or ongoing events. So traumatic events. So this includes things like domestic violence or child abuse and neglect. And then you have complex trauma, which is just exposure to a wide range of traumatic events. And typically, complex trauma is within interpersonal relationships. So it happens like during your childhood to your adolescent years, and think about like a caregiver to a child or a parent to a child. So two examples that I want to provide of complex or chronic trauma are developmental trauma and generational trauma. So developmental trauma is trauma that happens from infancy to 18 years of age, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It happens during your developmental years, right? So this can be things like parents with undiagnosed or untreated mental illness, parents who have substance abuse issues, whether that's alcohol or drugs, exposure to domestic violence, abandonment by one or both parents, if you have a parent that was incarcerated, and being without food, shelter, or clothing. So in result to experiencing developmental trauma, some people might experience dissociation, hypervigilance, struggle with relationships, intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, self-sabotage, and risky behaviors. And another type of chronic or complex trauma is generational trauma. So I know I feel like we hear that term a lot lately, generational trauma, and it's exactly what it sounds like as well. It's just psychological and emotional effects of traumatic experience that are passed down through generations. And of course, generational trauma is one of those things that it's going to take someone obviously in the generation to kind of get off of autopilot and liberate themselves enough to break through the cycle. And then this is things like genocide. So think of Holocaust survivors, oppression, war and conflict, child abuse and neglect, and substance abuse again. And also when it comes to generational trauma, think about epigenetics. So the fact that Black people are more likely to experience, well, not experience, but Black people are more likely to have higher blood pressure than any other race because of the generational trauma they experience. Also intergenerational poverty. So the cycle of poverty can also be something that comes in a result of experiencing generational trauma. And of course you can have anxiety, depression, unable to critically think, PTSD, chronic diseases, heart disease, difficulties with trust, so intimacy issues. You're more likely to experience violence if you experience generational trauma. So you can kind of see how with those two things, chronic and complex trauma, how these effects of trauma can be long lasting. It can last months to years. It can negatively impact every aspect of your life, physically, with the high blood pressure, heart disease. People with domestic violence survivors also experience things like that. How it affects you psychologically, how it affects you emotionally, spiritually. And then also understanding that trauma is layered, right? So it's not as simple as, oh, I just need to get over this, um, or having, if anyone tells you that you just need to get over it just because you created time and space between you and the traumatic event, that doesn't mean anything, right? Because what were you doing in between that time and when you were creating that space? What were you doing with that time? Um, just because you're 35 now and the traumatic event happened when you were 6, just because it happened so long ago, like, have you spent any time healing or working on yourself? Do you even have the awareness that you are living out your trauma, right? Do you know that your anxiety, depression is from that event that happened when you were 6? You might not even know that. You might not even attribute it to that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not as cut and dry. Human beings are not cut and dry. We are very complex, and we all experience a lot of things. And it's like, when you look at something like developmental trauma, right? So let's say your parents, they abuse substances. So because your parents abuse substances, you also have to like work through that neglect, because more than likely you were neglected because your parents were too busy getting high or getting drunk, or maybe you even experienced abuse because of their alcoholism, because they were abusing you. So, and life is just not that cut and dry. If you are one of those people that you're like, oh, I experienced this and I should be able to just get past it, you are worthy and you are deserving of help. It doesn't matter if you experience acute trauma. It doesn't matter if you experience complex trauma. It doesn't matter if you experience chronic trauma. You are all deserving and worthy of help. I know I struggled with it myself with my own trauma. I was essentially gaslighting myself. I was like, oh, people have been through worse things. And just because people have gone through worse things, again, it does not mean that you are not worthy and deserving of help with what you're dealing with. You're not taking away from anybody by getting help that you deserve. So I really hope that this video helps you understand yourself better, help you understand your loved ones. Give yourself grace, give yourself time. It takes time to work through things. And if you do have long-lasting effects from your trauma, know that there is help available, and you can do things to make your symptoms more bearable. You can go to therapy. There's more to therapy than just talk therapy. There's so many different forms of therapy. Mindfulness practice, medication if you need it. There's nothing wrong with seeking help, no matter what it looks like for you. I really hope this helps, and as always, happy healing.